Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Barakahakwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure to the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be profiling about 10 minutes or so of this video from Danny Haifong's YouTube channel titled Trump in Panic, Yemen Sinks U.S. Jet, Putin Orders Escalation with Larry Johnson and Colonel Larry Wilkerson. And I'm try not to let it be too all over the place, because within this 10 minutes, hey, a lot of different topics get covered, a lot of different prophetic topics, but all in all, it just goes to show that, hey, we are at the door of our salvation. World War III on the horizon, economic collapses, these nations turning against America, and the downfall of Esau Edom, the so-called white man's rulership. But I'm going to start the video at the 1 hour, 24 minute, and 46 second mark. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Burgeoning alliance between or relationship, this deepening partnership with Russia, China, Iran. But it seems like right now, the relationship that the United States is prioritizing the most is, of course, Israel's.
Because the U.S. and Donald Trump are Israel's bitch. Bibi Milkowski, Bibi Netanyahu, whenever he says jump, America and Trump say how high. And don't believe for a second that any public disagreements they have with each other is going to deter, their alliance with each other. There's going to come a point where the state of Israel is going to do something that's going to foment a war against Iran. And best believe the U.S., like the good little lapdog it is going to be dragged in on the side of Israel. But it's not just going to be the U.S. and Israel tag teaming Iran. On the side of Iran, or Persia, their ancient name, is going to be Gog or Russia, as pursuant to Ezekiel chapter 38. And it's going to play into the bigger battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the culmination and conclusion of World War III. This is Jeremiah 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he had taken against Edom, you so-called white people, which you Americans are, those 1948ers over in the Holy Land are, they're of the tribe of Amalek, those Europeans, Russians, etc., etc. And his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman, surely the least of the flock, those 1948ers, shall draw them out. Draw out the U.S. on their side and the other NATO nations, but on the side of Iran, it's going to draw out Russia, China, and her other allies. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them, because nukes are going to be fired during World War III. The state of Israel is going to get hit, and the United States of America is damn sure going to get hit and wiped off the face of the earth. And while the land of Israel will be inhabited and repopulated by the true children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today, America is going to become a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland.
Given that you just said that there's this huge danger of nuclear war, there's talks about, of course, preventing Iran from being able to build a nuclear weapon, which it has said many times it doesn't even have an interest in doing unless attacked. Israel has nuclear weapons, and there is, of course, a raging regional war. What do you see as the kind of end game here? Because we're looking at what is 16, 17 months of genocidal war, of displacement of the Palestinian people in Gaza, and the regional situation is still very much on fire.
Yeah, you put your finger on the immediate tactical, operational, if you will, situation that could derail everything. I go back to that editorial in Haaretz. Trump, Netanyahu, and the death throes of the American and Zionist dreams. Well, you might as well put.
Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. When those nukes start flying, it's going to be a 1-2 punch, knocking out those 1948ers and knocking out America.
Those two dreams together right now. We've forged them in union, and we are tied to that beast out there in the eastern end of the Mediterranean in ways that we have never been tied before. And right now, they're destroying.
We are tied to that beast out in the Mediterranean. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out.
Themselves. Haaretz has also had people who are very, very qualified to make the statements that they're making, from Shin Bet and from the IDF and from other elements of the security and political complex in Israel, saying in the last 48 hours, Jews are going to kill Jews in the streets. We're going to have a civil war. The question there.
And that's a cut to those 1948ers, because according to biblical prophecy, when the children of Israel are back in the Holy Land, war would no longer be taking place, nor violence. This is Isaiah chapter 60, verse 18. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise. And as that former U.S. colonel just said in that op-ed, within the last 48 hours at the time it was written, Jews will kill Jews in the streets and we will have civil war.
Here becomes, will Netanyahu use an attack on Iran unilaterally launched? Doesn't care whether the U.S. comes along or not, just to save his own rear end, just to save his place in the history of Israel, if you will. Will it be that kind of Solomon-like action, pull the temple down around his heads? And what will we do were that to occur?
And I think he was, speaking of Samson, who pulled the temple down on those Philistines. Solomon, died in peace.
Will we be in for a penny, in for a pound, because it's Netanyahu and it's Israel? Or will we stand back and let him destroy himself completely? I don't know, but you're right.
And we do know, according to biblical prophecy, America's gonna try to come in and be that good little guard dog like they are to Israel. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out.
All the ingredients for derailing everything that people might want to do that's positive and that might lead to a better world. That has a tendency, that has the capability to derail everything.
Yeah, talk about, how is Israel in particular destroying itself? Because, and you can throw in the United States' empire here too, but given all that has transpired since, especially the end of the so-called ceasefire that began Trump's administration, Israel's moving into Syria, Israel is threatening Iran, Israel's still violating all of the so-called ceasefire that was brokered around Lebanon.
Still in Lebanon, bombs on Beirut.
Still dropping bombs. Of course, has a big role in what's going on in Yemen and the U.S.'s war there. So many people observe that no, Israel is not destroying itself. Israel is in the driver's seat. What do you say to these people? Because I view it differently. But your expertise, you've been in the chair, you've seen, you've done a lot around this region and the U.S.'s role there. What do you make of people who say that Israel's actually in the driver's seat? It's not being destroyed.
I don't think.
Another cut, as we just read in Isaiah 60, verse 18. Violence would no more be heard in thy land. You've got that war on the Gaza Strip taking place. Theist attacks against those 1948ers. Iran shooting missiles into the Holy Land. And Israel's on a 7-front war. This is Micah chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 1-3. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of Yahweh And in the scriptures, mountains can be symbolic for governments. So the government or the kingdom of Israel shall be established in the top of the mountains, the sole ruling authority, with every other heathen nation subordinate to it. And it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And when Tel Aviv is known as Pink City, and it's one of the pride or alphabet hotspots on the face of the earth, you know that the law isn't going forth of Zion. Verse 3, and he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Hey, when the true children of Israel are back in the Holy Land, not only would there be no violence against them, but these heathen nations wouldn't even be going to war against each other anymore. But with those 1948ers over there, as Danny Haiphong and that colonel said, Israel is at war with Iran, Lebanon, the Houthis, and Gaza, etc., etc. Ezekiel 36 verse 5, Idumea, which is the Greek way of saying Edom, which have appointed my land into their possession, laying the groundwork with the Balfour Declaration and further cementing the deal with the help of the U.S. and the UN after World War II.
You're in the driver's seat when your casualty rate is so high, your WIA rate is even skyrocketing, and your PTSD rate is climbing alarmingly, over 8,000 now, I'm told. And you're looking at reservists right now who are saying, as the prospect of a third and even a fourth call-up for some of them transpires in front of their faces, some of them have already gotten the call-up, I'm not coming, I'm not going. And you're seeing a shift of veterans into the more critical areas of Gaza just because of this, because the reservists have failed to show up. They're not going to show up. They're not going to report for duty. Maybe they'll be able to get enough of them to shore up Lebanon and maybe shore up Syria, but Gaza is going to have to be all professionals. It's going to have to be all people who signed to do the deal. That's a tragedy for the IDF. The IDF is fracturing, it's falling apart. So I don't see any of the
high KIA rates in Gaza, violence being heard in the land, and high PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder rates. Those 1948er soldiers over there are cracking under the constant warfare and pressure. This is Isaiah 65 verse 19. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem and join my people, and the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, nor the voice of crying. Another future prophecy of when the true children of Israel are back in the land. But with high PTSD rates and desertions from the IDF, hey, that's an example of weeping and the voice of crying being heard in that land. So what should that tell you about the people over there?
Fiber of Israel that's intact right now in the way it was prior to October the 7th, no matter how reprehensible even that might have been in terms of their treatment of the Palestinians. This October 7th to the present has disassembled much of the fabric of Israel, and it's just waiting to start burning.
Yeah. It seems like both the United States and Israel are caught in their own versions of, and the United States, of course, a big part of what's going on in the region vis-a-vis Israel. Forever wars. And it seems like that's all that the U.S. as an empire has left at its disposal. It's not really offering much in these negotiations on all sides, on all these negotiations that are taking place in talks. And what we see is the United States continuing on in this forever war path. In Israel, of course, now is it has always been against the Palestinians, but regionally has deepened this forever war mantra and dynamic.
Yes, and I'm hearing more and more from people around Mohammed bin Salman, Mohammed bin Zayed, and other leaders, Sisi, for example, even Aoun in Lebanon. I'm hearing more and more that people are despairing of the future of their own country and despairing of the future with an Israel that is unleashed as it is right now, with no checks and balances whatsoever. And a superpower, America, the empire, who's behind it. People are going to start looking for options. They're going to be looking for places to hide, at least, or places to go. BRICS is a perfect example of that. And the momentum of BRICS right now is just accelerating every day. I don't think that, if I'm 80 right now, if I live to be 85, I may see the U.S. currency become the non-transactional, the non-reserve currency of the world. I may see something else replace it, first on a regional basis, maybe commodity basis, but I think eventually we're going to see the U.S. dollar
ultimately on that micro C-hip implant replacement, the mark of the BEAST in Revelation 13 verses 16 to 18. And hey, Abaratazad, this isn't the case. Hey, but if we are here another 5 years, I don't see this society of Esau's or America's going on for that much longer.
Evaporate is the world's base currency. And that is a real blow to us. It will increase our debt overnight by astronomical amounts because we'll no longer be able.
And he just named a bunch of, American allies or countries that are friendly with America, seeking alternatives due to America and their puppet master, Israel's, actions out here, which brings us to Obadiah chapter 1, which is only one chapter. I'm gonna read verses 1 to 2, then jump to 7. And this whole chapter is dedicated to the judgment and downfall of you Edomites. As the header reads, Edom will be humbled. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And these nations are rising up against, we'll just call it the collective West, really with the America at the head right now, economically, looking for that alternative with the BRICS. But eventually it's going to be militarily. And that, Colonel named a lot of Arab nations that are, worried about America and Israel's actions abroad, which, 2nd Esdras chapter 15, the dragons of Arabia shall link up with the Carmanians or the Iranians to waste a portion of the land of Assyria. And, that portion of the land of Assyria can go into Israel because, Israel was a part, parts of it were a part of the ancient Neo-Assyrian Empire. Then it can also go into America, which is spiritual Assyria. There will be attacks on the homeland. Hey, there's a lot of sleeper cells over here. And with Biden's open borders, that freely let a lot of them in. But this is verse 2. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. You Edomites are actually the global minority. And what? Your reputation is being made small and you're being despised. Hence, why you're seeing the BRICS grow in power. And, especially with DJ Donald Trump's recent tariffs, he was expecting, these nations to come quickly bending to America. But there's been a lot of pushback from it. You aren't that big bully on the block anymore. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy, or your allies, have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. At face value, still looking like your ally, but then behind the scenes, doing deals with the BRICS. They that eat thy bread, receiving all this U.S. aid and money and weaponry, have laid a wound under thee, ultimately turning against you and using those very same weapons against you. There is none understanding in him. And that, former colonel also said that with the U.S. dollar losing its reserve status, that's just going to bring, heavy debts on top of the debts that are already in America. Which brings us to Habakkuk chapter 2. I'll start at verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Speaking to Esau, the wicked, of Job 9:24, and Malachi 1 verse 4. And as it says in Psalms 58 verse 3, the wicked are estranged from the womb. You Edomites were created to be crooked. Hence, why you do everything clean contrary to the scriptures and righteousness. Yeah, also because he transgresseth by wine. His philosophies out here. Democracy, capitalism, socialism, communism, feminism, that equality, in quotes, the alphabet group. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death and cannot be satisfied. You damn colonizer. But gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. You have to follow after this Western ideal. And if you don't, we're going to throw sanctions on you and ultimately go to war against you. You got to use that U.S. dollar as the reserve, speak our English, use our capitalism and bring voting to your country, etc., etc. Then ultimately the elites want what? That new world ORDER with one currency, one religion. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe or destruction to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And how did you Edomites get everything you have? Through grape, robbery, and murder, colonization. And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And when we get that word clay in the Strongs, it's H5671, aptite. Weight of pledges, heavy debts. And like that colonel just said, with the U.S. dollar, losing its reserve currency status and its purchasing power, that's just going to mean more heavy debts for the average U.S. citizen. And they're already, these Americans are already laden with debt. Car loan debt, student loan debt, which, Trump just said, look, we're going to start collecting on it and garnishing your wages to get that money. Debt on top of debt. And, these tariffs are just a tax on you already, cash-strapped Americans.
Able to manipulate it. And it's going to cause us to probably retrench to the point where Trump's idea of Fortress America will seem calm and peaceful compared to what we do. We will retrench inside our own borders into hell with the rest of the world while we try to nurse our wounds, lick our wounds, and correct the things that have put us there. But it won't be correctable.
Yeah, and as you stated before, I mean, the trajectory of the world, it seems, Colonel Wilkerson, is that there's just a deep amount of desperation, and you mentioned the nuclear question. Some people argue with me, oh well, there's still a long way to go there, but I actually see when it comes to the rise of Russia, China, and even Iran, because the end games of any kind of conflict militarily with these three rising powers is just catastrophic and almost impossible to imagine militarily. That this is why nuclear war is closer than ever. That's how I view it now. I'm curious on your assessment.
No, you're right, and you would think that just the sobering fact that you just articulated would cause people to pause, back up, and re-strategize. and do things differently. You would think.
You would think, but hey, contrary to popular belief, there is no free will out here. Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi is moving everybody out here to fulfill biblical prophecy. No matter how crazy it may seem to the average person out here. This is Proverbs 21 verse 1. The king's heart, or lahab, your mind, is in the hand of Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi working on the heads of these leaders to move them like chess pieces into place for World War III. This is Revelation chapter 9 verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming upon us, and will go nuclear. This is 2 Peter chapter 3. I'm going to read verses 10 to 12. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. And in the scriptures, heaven and hell can be symbolic for a condition. Heaven when you're in rulership, and hell when you're in captivity, which the children of Israel are currently in their hell, while you Edomites are in your heavens. But when these nukes fly, that's going to be the end of Esau and these heathens as heavens, but the beginning of ours. And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And it's going to be those nuclear missiles that's going to melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth. Seeing that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? And hey, if you're an Israelite who the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi has woken you up to this truth, you should be praying for these things to happen as quickly as possible, because that means our salvation. And also, you should be building yourself up to be ready for these times and to be faithful to Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi, and not being taken by the ways of this world like 2/3 of our people are, or which are these heathens in general, which they have no hope, thinking that, look, there's no way somebody would push the button, America's gonna go on for another 50 to 100 years. I gotta have my 5, 10, 15 year plan and get my degree, etc., etc. Verse 12, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. That nuclear option.
But instead, we are doing what every empire that I'm cognizant of in human history has done toward its end, and that is jump in for more, reinforce failure, deepen failure, make more profound failure until you collapsed. I'm sorry, but that's pretty much
Isaiah chapter 19. The Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst of Egypt, which America is known as spiritual Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. They err in every work therein. These leaders, all these moves they're making is hurting America instead of helping it. And again, that's the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi to further collapse this place. And it's been the same with every other empire throughout history. When it was time for them to go down, Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi worked on the minds of their leaders to make deadly mistakes.
The way every great empire in human history has gone out. And as I said before, we have a unique way to go, and a unique way to try and prevent that inevitability from happening conventionally, and that is to use nuclear weapons. That's never occurred before. We had in the Muslim Empire, in the Mughal Empire, in the Mongol Empire, in the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine, you name the empire, they had prophets who predicted the end of the world. The various gods that they served and so forth.
And Donald Trump recently said on Joe Rogan's podcast, that there are prophets of old that predicted that that war in the world would end in the Middle East. You know this, right? Hey, Donald Trump and these elites watch us, chiefly the men of GMS or Great Millstone, whom the spirit of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is dealing with.
At the end of the world, but it never came about. We now are. They had prophets who predicted the end of the world. The various gods that they served and so forth predicted the end of the world, but it never came about. We now actually have the capacity to end the world, or at least end the human race on that world.
Yeah.
And that's because Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, any of these other religions out here are false and bullshit. And their texts are good for nothing more than toilet paper. You're only going to find the truth, the 144% truth in the scriptures. As he said, these prophets of the past, they predicted the end of the world, but it didn't come to pass. But the prophets, the true prophets, are predicting this world's end. And as we can see, it's coming. Matthew 24, verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. This is Isaiah 34, verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of Yahweh and read the Bible, the Old and the New Testament, as well as the Apocrypha, which is a part of the Old Testament. No one of these shall fail. These true prophecies, none shall want her mate, because there's no other book or text, philosophy, idea, religion, whatever you want to call it out there, that compares to the 144% accuracy of the scriptures. The scriptures told you what happened in the past, what's currently happening, and what's about to happen. For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. Now I'm going to close it out in Jeremiah 28, verse 8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, against ancient Egypt, against the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, and prophesying against America and these other Edomite kingdoms today. Of war, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. And of evil, the elements shall melt with fervent heat, and the works in the earth shall be burned up. And of pestilence, this is what the true prophets would be prophesying about. And with all the scriptures we've gone into with this video, hey, that should let you know who the prophets are and who are not the prophets out here. That's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere, Akim and Akwath, were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.